Welcome back to Katana TCG, and in this week's video we're looking at some of the more unorthodox cards and how we can apply them into our standard format. Let's go! When it's time to flex on your opponents in Top Cut this season, or even just upgrade your TCG accessories, make sure you're checking out inkgaming.com. They have a wide variety of custom playmats, custom dice bags, face masks, as well as mouse pads too, and a grip of sleeves and dice and deck boxes, all your TCG accessory needs. And you can use the code DADSPOD10 at checkout for 10% off your entire order from inkgaming.com. Your game, your style. In this list, we're going to be taking a look at Radiant Serena. Radiant Serena is 140 HP Radiant Pokemon, which means you can only play one in a deck, and it does have a rule box at some capacity. Its ability, Elegant Heal. Once during your turn, you may heal 20 damage from each of your Pokemon. Spread Heal has always been pretty sick. And I was really wrapping my head around the ways that we could really apply this card in an effective fashion, and I was looking at a VMAX that also does Spread Heal. Celebi VMAX has 310 HP. Its ability, Curative Forest. Once during your turn, you may heal 20 damage from each of your grass Pokemon. So combining this with your Radiant Serena, adding an additional 40 heal is pretty cool, and you can also use multiple Curative Forest abilities at a time. So if you have 3 Celebi set up, you can heal a maximum of 80 damage per turn, which is substantial. I also threw in a 1/1 line of the Shaman V-Star. Its Star Bloom ability, once during your turn, you may heal 120 damage from each of your benched grass Pokemon. You see what I'm doing here? We're doing a whole lot of healing, and I included things like Big Charm to be able to bump up the Celebi's HP range to about 340, and we added a 2/2 line of the Kricketune with the Swelling Tune. You can only apply one of these abilities at a time, but there's more of them for consistency's sake. Of course, your grass Pokemon in play, except for Kricketune, get a 40 HP buff. So we're able to actually climb that Celebi VMAX HP range up to 380, which is pretty cool. Not gonna lie, not a lot of things hit for that range, at least for one hit knockout. Celebi has an okay attack for 1 grass and 1 colorless. You do max plant for 130 damage. You search your deck for up to 2 Pokemon, reveal them, and put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. So it's really easy to get your board state established with Celebi VMAX. You basically just tank a bunch of hits, heal it off with things like Hyper Potion. Down the line, you attach things like V-Guard Energy to take a 30 damage resistance against attacks from Pokemon V, which makes Celebi a little hard to knock out. There's also a new card called Emergency Jelly that's coming out in our Silver Tempest set. This is an incredibly unorthodox card. At the end of each turn, if the Pokemon this card is attached to has 30 HP or less remaining and has any damage counters on it, you heal 120 damage from it. If you healed any damage this way, discard this card. So we're only playing 2 of these because I really don't see myself playing it a whole lot, but in a healing deck like this, where at some capacity you might be getting 2-shot and put yourself down to that 30 HP range with Celebi VMAX, you are able to heal yourself back up 120 damage starting your turn, and then you're able to just go back into your cycle of Elegant Healing with Radiant Serena, using multiple of the Curative Forest abilities, and just able to heal a whole lot of damage. Gardenia's Vigor is definitely your energy acceleration of choice in a deck like this, as it does accelerate grass energy, and it makes it really easy to set up Shaman to Revenge Blast for a whole lot of damage if one of your Celebi has gone down, or if your opponent has just given up entirely on trying to go through Celebi and is chased after your single price Pokemon in the form of Bibarel or the Kricketune. Next, we're going to take a look at the Radiant Jirachi. Radiant Jirachi has an ability called Pass a Wish. This Pokemon is knocked out by damage from an opponent's Pokemon's attacks. You search your deck for up to 3 cards, put them into your hand, and then shuffle your deck. And for 2 colorless, it does Stellar Doom. You flip 2 coins. If both of them are heads, your opponent's active Pokemon is knocked out. I really like this ability. Being able to go into your deck and grab 3 cards to really rinse and repeat this cycle of trying to Stellar Doom every turn is really cool, but because it's double colorless, it fits very well in a Zoroark box deck, if you will. We also feature the new Braxian with the Flare Parade attack. It does 60 times damage, and this attack does 60 damage more for each Serena in your discard pile. We are playing a heavy 4 count of the new Serena supporter, so we're able to bump that attack up to 240 damage, plus Choice Belt gets you to 270, which is respectable at some capacity. But really it's just to chip some damage here and there, swing for fire weakness, and call it a day. We also have the Slowbro with the Twilight Inspiration. You can use this attack only if your opponent has exactly one prize card remaining. You take 2 prizes, really speeds up the game in your favor. We're running a 1 of Galissapod with the Hard Time Slash. It does 30 damage and then 50 more damage for each of your opponent's Pokemon V or GX in play, and there tend to be quite a few of those, especially in things like Mew VMAX. We also play a Mightyena with the Hustle Bark ability. If your opponent has any VMAX Pokemon in play, this Pokemon's attacks cost 3 colorless less, and for 3 colorless you do Wild Tackle for 160, and this Pokemon deals 50 damage to itself. So it one hits Mew VMAX or anything like Shadow Rider or just dark weak Pokemon in general. As long as your opponent has a VMAX in play, Mightyena swings for the fences. We also feature a Flapple with its acidic mucus attack. It does 50 times damage, and this attack does 50 damage for each of your opponent's Pokemon in play that has an ability. Shady Dealings, the Comfy Chorus Engine, all of those decks run a lot of Pokemon with abilities. So Flapple's actually able to hit some pretty solid numbers with a lot of decks running a lot of Pokemon with abilities. I also feature a 1 of Miltank. Not a lot of people respect this card. Force your opponent to have the line against Miltank, and then punish them for sending up something like the Shady Dealings Inteleon or something else along those lines. We're running the Kirlia Refinement Engine to be able to draw through our deck, and then it's also cool because it's a stage 1 Pokemon that can be switched into with Zoroark. And if you really do not like your friends, or at least your locals, there is a way to play Radiant Jirachi. Obviously you can only play one of them with a more control type feel. A deck like this plays 4 Crushing Hammers to be able to deny your opponent their energy on the board. You're running a high count of 3 Avery to be able to limit their bench and really give them a hard time getting around the 4 Miltanks you play in a deck like this. You're also running Silene to be able to shuffle in Crushing Hammers, to shuffle in your supporters, to make the game last a little bit longer. We're also running 4 Glimwood Tangle to be able to make sure we're landing those 2 heads off of the Radiant Jirachi Stellar Doom attack and be able to take the prizes with the Jirachi. Other than that, this is kind of just a silly if you don't have it then you don't win type of deck, but I think it's a really fun way to play Jirachi. In this deck, we're going to be showing how to use Ho-Oh-V. This 230 HP colorless Pokemon has the ability of Rebirth Flames. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in your discard pile, you may put this Pokemon onto your bench and attach up to 4 basic energy cards from your discard pile to this Pokemon. And if you use this ability, your turn ends. For 4 colorless, it does Rainbow Burn for 100 plus damage. This attack does 30 more damage for each type of basic energy attached to this Pokemon. So with 4 different types of energy that you accelerated from the discard pile, you're able to hit 220 damage. Anything above that, you start creeping up into that V-Star range, which is very good. We're also using the Shining Arcana Gardevoir in Lineage with the Refinement Kirlia to be able to look at the top 2 cards of our deck and attach any number of basic energy cards we find there to our Pokemon any way we like. And you can use things like the Primate Wisdom Oranguru to be able to stack that energy on top of the deck and then use the Shining Arcana to promise that you at least have 1 attachment there. We're also at a little disadvantage because you have to put a lot of energy onto Ho-Oh to actually hit that V-Star number or even creep up into VMAX range. Radiant Greninja is a great way to discard a bunch of energy to use Ho-Oh, and then we also play a Spicy Thornton. If we lose Radiant Greninja or find a way to get it into the discard pile, we can actually cycle it back into play with the Thornton, being able to grab it from the discard pile and switch it with one of our basic Pokemon in the form of Ho-Oh. If it has the 2 water plus a colorless energy onto it, we can use Moonlight Shuriken to deal 90 damage to 2 of our opponent's Pokemon, and in that specific instance we're able to clean up all of that math that Ho-Oh just wasn't able to hit if you weren't able to get that 5 or 6 basic energy plus the choice belt you needed for those knockouts. This is a very interesting way to play Ho-Oh, but definitely count me in because I love seeing all the different energy types in this deck. While we're still talking about Ho-Oh, there might as well be a world where we play it with things like the Dialga. The Thornton play has never been spicier than in a deck like this. You basically rifle through all of your resources at the speed of sound using things like Radiant Greninja, Mew with the Mysterious Tail that allows you to go 6 cards deeper into your deck and grab an item card out of there. Use Serena to draw through all of your stuff and then add some cards to your hand. Being able to put Ho-Oh in the discard pile, accelerate a bunch of the basic metal energy that you have onto it, ending your turn, hopefully leaving the Diancie in the active so you can set up the spicy Thornton play for the following turn, being able to switch into Origin Form Dialga V, then evolving into the V Star, and then using Star Chronos as early as turn 2 just seems super duper busted. I don't think that there's a world where I could personally pull that off, but there's definitely a lot of merit to a deck like this, being able to apply that much pressure, hit for 220 very early with Origin Form Dialga V-Star, taking an extra turn, and then setting up your board state to just basically throttle the rest of the game with the Metal Blast attack just seems very powerful. Darkrai is another one of those decks that can really capitalize on using Ho-Oh's Rebirth Flames ability very efficiently, being able to rifle through all of your resources, get a bunch of dark energy into the discard pile, capitalize on using all your dark patches to spread your energy across things like Crobat, Galarian, Moltres V, as well as your Darkrai's, then being able to increase your damage base by 120 damage by using Ho-Oh's Rebirth Flames and putting it directly onto your bench and ending your turn puts a tremendous amount of pressure on your opponent, and I really like what Ho-Oh kind of brings to an archetype like this. It does make for an okay tertiary attacker, and it's probably a really easy target very early in the game, but then your opponent is forced to make those difficult decisions to chase after Darkrai, which is actually dealing the most amount of damage, or chasing after Ho-Oh, which has a separate weakness than Darkrai altogether, and having to find ways to get to that 230 mark very early in the game. These cards may not have the potential to shift the meta one way or another, however they look very, very fun to play, and I'm sure you're going to run into them a lot on the PTCGO ladder the same way you did with Lunatone Solrock. If you enjoy my content, make sure you like the video, comment below which decks or cards you want me to talk about next, and then subscribe to my channel and turn your notifications on so that you get alerts every time I upload videos like this one. And check out the PCS podcast as well as the Pokedads podcast anywhere you listen to your pods at. Deuces.